Hello, and welcome. This one's going to be a very short one. I'll be surprised if it's more than like 5 minutes. Let's let's aim for that for our timeline. But otherwise, I'm going to run through a quick little how-to, a quick little, I don't want to call it a hack because it's not really a hack, but what if you have to put on clothing for your low poly? You don't have an outfit idea for your character in mind that is going to be basically skin tight, you know. And here's a good example, one of my models of actually the character we're modeling for a tutorial. But the question is, how do we make things like this scarf right here? How do we work out sleeves? Maybe a dress or a skirt, stuff like that. So this one was suggested by quite a few of you guys. So I think I'm going to try and do more of these little mini ones based on you guys' suggestions. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right, we're going to start work today on our model that we've been starting our latest tutorial series on. Now, everything we're going to do in here is not going to translate over, so keep that in mind. But I strongly suggest saving this as an alt file, and probably most likely get back to all of the things that we discuss in this little short tutorial in the future. So a lot of you have brought up that you wanted a tutorial or just a quick rundown on how to add clothing to a character. And most low poly characters of this style are very Mega Man Legends like and tend to have the clothing be part of the mesh and not really have too many edits to it to make it look like it's actually clothing on, like resting on top of someone's body. So we're going to show how to work that into low poly today. Let's see. So the first thing I want to do is select the torso, and I should probably get our magnifier out. There we go. And we're going to start on trying to get a collar and a scarf similar to what we did, or similar to what I showed off in the intro for this video. So let's go into edit mode. Let's grab our knife. Make sure we're on our vertex. Select. We're going to cut across here and then all the way back here. So this is going to give us a lowish V-neck that'll meet halfway down the top of the torso or the rib cage, and it'll also give us a nice roundish shape for the collar. Now we want to pop the collar out just a bit. We're going to select our two lines that we made. We're going to extrude out from here. Let's do it on this axis. There we go. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this one right here with this one right at the end of the shoulder. Oop. It would help if I selected the vertex. And we're just going to try and start to get things in a position. There we go, not too bad. And we can either bring this one up, or we can do the same thing and combine it. Hmm. And so now that we have a collar to work with, we can work on the scarf, the back end of the scarf, and do the exact same thing, just extrude it out. I'm going to do mine a few more times. Just in case later on I want to rig it and animate. And this is kind of where that comment about like, hey, save it for later, because we probably will come back to it, is going to come into play. Is at some point we will cover a tutorial on how to rig and how to animate. And so having models that are ready for us to practice will be absolutely perfect. So the next thing I want to do is I want to work on a skirt too for the character. Of course, if you have a character that's either a more masculine body type or maybe you want more masculine clothing, more androgynous clothing, you'll probably work this out a little bit different than I currently am. But for the sake of the character that I'm working on, this is how we're going to do it. So I'm going to cut a line across, and this is so that I can have a nice hip line for the skirt to rest on. And we're just going to extrude it down, probably a good 2 or 3 times. Actually, let's start here first and get our first, get it extruded out first, just by one step. That way we can adjust some of the shapes first before we continue on. And then once again, for the sake of rigging, I'm going to extrude it down a few more times. And this is solely because we want to be able to bend it easily whenever we do rig. And we do apply weights to it. So the more subdivisions you have, or the more loops of meshes you have, the easier it will be to bend. Now for a shape like this where we're pretty segmented, it will be the least of our worries, since clipping is kind of expected. Yeah, let's go with that. So that looks fine. I'm going to adjust it just a little bit. I like to go with roughly right at the top of the knee whenever I model skirts, but feel free to work it any way you like. I keep forgetting that mirror is on, since we haven't applied our mirror yet. We can round it out too, just a bit, kind of like we did in the last tutorial with our legs. All right, the last little bit of like adding a slight little extra detail to clothing or to our character model to make it look like clothing, especially in this one, is a scarf or a tie. Tie up right in the center of the torso. So we want to add in a cube. Once again, always going back to cubes. And we're just going to kind of shape it roughly like this. So low poly takes a lot from abstract, from trying to gauge and guess the simplest shape or shapes it takes to make an object. So right here, I'm trying to think about what is the simplest shape that will make our tie knot. So from there, we can do our tie. And I'm just going to extrude it out twice. That way for my character, I can do this kind of a non-uniform. And it gives it a little bit of asymmetry. Makes it a little bit of fun. Then up here, we can try and make this into something like that. There we go. It's a little long. So much like modeling the hair, this stage is also just a lot of eyeballing it and figuring out what you like. Of course, these techniques can be applied to anything from a regular uniform like I'm doing right here to maybe you like to do armor, maybe your character likes to wear something a little bit larger and floofier, which we'll cover in just a second with doing like shoulder pads for these arms. So it all does carry over. It's just how you execute it. I think having a hard set of rules on how to do something isn't quite the best method. I think showing off how something works and giving everyone the opportunity to explore all of the options that they want to try out and check out. That's what's really going to make modeling and low poly that much more fun. So with that, we're starting on the arms, and I've already got the shoulder pad that we were talking about earlier, and I just subdivided it out twice so that I could get the shoulder to poof out a bit more. So that'll give us a little bit more volume. Now I'm not going to mirror this over. For this tutorial, I'm actually not going to keep this model. We're going to revert back to the previous one when we do UV map. But everything we learn in the next tutorial about UV mapping and furthermore texturing can be applied to all of the extras that we add on here too. So from there, I think I'm pretty satisfied with it. I might want to, once again for a little bit of depth, bring this in, bring the underside out. Once again, not worrying too bad about what's going to clip and what isn't going to clip, because to be honest, it's all going to clip at this stage and at this low of poly and with the type of character, with the segmented body type character that we're doing. So the last one we're going to do are cuffs. And so what I want to do is actually take this out right here. Let's see. Because I want to kind of have the sleeve poof up near the end, almost like the cuff is tied down right at the wrist. See, we don't need that tool on. Make sure we have all those selected. I'm just going to bring this out slightly on all axes. There we go. And so this is going to give that that vibe of having a more long sleeve shirt. And you can bring this anywhere you want. Like if you want a little bit more poofy near the elbow, for me I like it near the wrist. And then we're going to extrude this out. I'm going to extrude it up. So if my character was, if I was aiming for, I guess, a more delinquent light, I would probably have my character's sleeves just be unbuttoned, so broken down here, and covering part of the hand. But for this case, we'll fold the sleeves up. And you can do the same if your character has pants or maybe high socks. You can do the same down here. And in fact, here's how I would recommend going about that. Is of course selecting your object, and just if you have like you have like poofy socks, doing the same thing we did with the cuffs, or not the cuffs, the shoulder pads, and just making a couple of subdivisions, one at the top and one at the bottom, so you can segment out this, and then bringing it out just like that. That'll give you a nice folded over sock or boot. So for my character, I think she's fine with just some slip-ons like loafers. And that right there should that right there should conclude our tutorial. And I guess in a way, yes, continue it further into the next one, which should be dropping in about a week. So I hope this tutorial was helpful. I got too many suggestions saying, hey, can you please show us how to put clothing on these characters aside from textures? How do I model clothing? And this is roughly how I would handle it, especially for a segmented character like this. There are other ways you can do it, especially when dealing with a skirt, but this is the simplest way for right now that we're going to cover. Now there's one other thing that I want to mention, and that's covering topology and how to keep all of that stuff pretty clean. So in 3D modeling, you want your topology to be pretty clean by making sure you have like all of these. Let me check the torso. And where you have these nice clean loop arounds. So like for this torso right here, we can tell as we go around, we have this nice loop of squares. Now that can get disrupted by things like tries, like right here. If we go around here, all these tries start meeting into this point in the back. And that can be a little bit unclean, especially when it comes to animating and UV mapping. Lucky for us, they can be combined with their neighbors to make a nice singular stripe. But for the most part, we have to be very careful with that. Always make sure that triangles have a pair that's, if not next to it, as close to it as can be. And we could see that up here where we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, these two are quads, so it'd be 1, 2, and then under here would be 3. And then we can't see our other one, but it's down there. There's 4. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining. I'll see you all next week. Hopefully I have the Patreons rolling right now. And if you have any suggestions, any other little things that you want to see that we can cover real quick in a 10-20 minute tutorial, let me know. I will catch you all on the flip side. Peace.